I think people for so many years, because we had this fallacy that officers don't get hungry, they don't get scared, they don't get cold. All of those things are untrue. I've been hungry, scared, and cold in my 28 years. And I think because we're so vulnerable now in law enforcement, realizing that stoic machoism exterior did not serve the community well, which is why we kept having so many incidents.
Welcome to Just Between Us Girls. This is Columbus's hub for inclusive conversations on building success in male-dominated fields. Whether it's through empowerment, support, or advocacy, we talk all things professional development and breaking the glass ceiling. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Just Between Us Girls. I am your host, Ariani Damien with Thompson Restoration, and today we have
LaShonna Potts, the first Assistant Chief of Columbus Division of Police.
Thank you so much, Chief Potts, for joining our episode today. Y'all, we are on recording number 2. So I will say, I have to be like, I think the biggest thing about this podcast I've always wanted is to make sure that it feels organic. So there are a couple things that we're going to just bring back into this episode. And I just want to say I'm really excited to have you be a part of this because it's International Women's Day, number 1. But 2 years ago, I met you at the CAI. We had a panel that we did for women in leadership. And since then, I've just seen your audience grow. I've seen your voice grow on LinkedIn. I've seen you create such a different level of, I think, proximity and intimacy for regular civilians like myself to feel like we have more of an understanding of what your work really means in our community. So I want to thank you for even using your voice to do that.
Oh, thank you. And I'm sharing accolades to you as well. I've watched you grow in those 2 years. And I've said before, anytime women can get in a space that's male-dominated and make their own mark, kudos to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you are especially in a male-dominated field and came in a leadership role for that.
Yes.
So I would love to hear a little bit about your journey coming in because you have had a lot of otherness that has clouded your career path getting here.
Oh, absolutely. So grew up in a single-parent household. My mom grew up extremely poor. She was a teenage mom, raised 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. And one day she decided to join the Detroit Police Department. And when she joined the Detroit Police Department, our lives changed dramatically in a positive way. We saw my mother do a lot of community work in the community. And I knew early on that I wanted to be in service. I just didn't know like whether it be a law enforcement or whether it be an attorney. But I always felt this need to be the voice for the voiceless. And that was due to some trauma that I experienced as a child. And so at 18 years old, walked into the Detroit Police Department, filled out an application, and they were crazy enough to hire me.
I love that for you.
So I started that career there, spent 24 and a half years there, left there when Chief Bryant was selected to be the chief here in Columbus. And she said, I know exactly what I want you to do. I need you to follow me and let us rebuild the police department here, making sure that community engagement is at the forefront of what her vision is.
Yeah. And you guys, you've been the first to do 2 things, especially coming into this market. So talk to us a little bit about that and maybe how that has, like, I imagine that has challenged you in some way.
So first, we were the first African-American women to sit in a seat. My position was created specifically for Chief Bryant. And so previously, Columbus Division Police didn't even have assistant chiefs. Chief Bryant created the first assistant chief, which means I'm her number 2 in command when I got here. But we're also the first outsiders to ever be in this division. So we didn't grow up in Columbus. We didn't go to school here. We didn't go through the police department here. And so it was refreshing to come in and have new ideas. And I will tell you it was challenging in the beginning because there were some people who did not want 2 African-American women to sit in a seat. I can honestly say over the last 4 years, our police department has been fantastic. The community has welcomed us with open arms. And we are just excited to see where the next years go.
Yeah. I will tell you, I think that it's been such a great thing to see people that are so focused on the community aspect of things, because I think a lot of the times the misconceptions that come from the public and from just outside this building, right? Which, by the way, we are in a new building on this episode. If you notice that our scenery has changed a little bit, we are actually in First Assistant Chief Potts' office overlooking Girl, what is this? The Scioto River?
Yes, it is.
Overlooking the Scioto. And thank you for this honor to come and do this in your space. So, but seeing how things outside of this building can be misconstrued, I've really had to commend you on how much you have made it a mission to make sure people know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Absolutely.
So what do you think has led you to really decide to even go that way and not to come in, put your head down, just do the work and not really even have to, I guess, explain past your work?
So I would say that I've always been a person, even as a young kid, sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness, not permission. Mm-hmm. And so I knew coming in here that it was extremely important that we are boots to the ground. First, because we were coming on the heels of civil unrest.
Yes.
So when we got here, the community and the police department were not in sync. Mm-hmm. And so in order for us to lead, we have to be able to understand what were the issues that caused civil unrest here in 2020. And it started with just simple conversations, right? People were not used to seeing bosses in the neighborhoods. And so as we lead, we can't tell you what to do if we don't know what it is that you do.
Yes.
And so it started with just like these grassroots organizations coming and having meetings with them. Tell us the good about the division, right, first.
Yeah.
And then now let's slide into the more difficult conversation. What is it that you don't like about what we do? And then what can you lend us and your help and your assistance to get us to change the trajectory of law enforcement? Because I think the community everywhere in this country wanted something different.
Yeah.
But then we also had to get the buy-in of the police officers.
Right.
And so that meant coming in here, being quiet, observing what was working, mm-hmm. and then changing things slowly. A lot of times leaders come into spaces and they just change for the sake of changing.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
Not in law enforcement. The two things that police officers, we don't like change, but we also don't like things to stay the same. Yeah. And so we had to get the buy-in. That meant having a lot of roundtable discussions from the lower rank to the upper rank. Mm-hmm. But then also asking them, what is it that you want to see in 5 years? What do you want to see in 10 years from the division? And really just organically building our team. And so 4 years later, we've had a huge reduction in violent crime. Our case closures for our homicides are above the national average. We're doing some innovative work as it relates to juvenile justice, mm-hmm. Working in spaces that the police department hadn't seen itself in years. Yeah. And I attune it to the fact that we just came in vulnerable and open to suggestions.
Yeah. And I think ready to have the conversation on both ends.
Absolutely.
It feels like, I mean, if you don't follow Chief LaShonna Potts on LinkedIn, go ahead and just do that. Because even I'll see your postings from out in the field, mm-hmm. when you're out there and you, girl, I remember this one post you made and it ended with, if you are doing unsavory things in the community, we will find you. We will. And I love that you're using your voice to make sure that it literally is coming from you.
Absolutely.
And that you're adding that identity and that focus on, this is about what we are doing.
Absolutely.
And how we're going to do it.
And for us, it's my passion for law enforcement. It started, as I said, in trauma. So I understand the communities. Sometimes they're kind of apprehensive about what is law enforcement. We don't want to come in a neighborhood and occupy the neighborhood. That's not what our vision is. Our vision is that police and community have to coexist. Yeah. And they have to exist in a way where both of their voices are heard, because I have officers, 1,800 of them, that depend on us to make the right decisions for them. Mm-hmm. But I also have a community of almost 1 million that expects exemplary service, professionalism, and a compassionate police department.
And presence,
right? Mm-hmm. Because it's important that, and there's no secret, most of our officers don't reside in the community in which they serve. And so my expectation is wherever your zip code is, mm-hmm. when you come into Columbus, you better treat it like home. Yeah. You treat the community as if they were your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. Yeah. And if you don't, we will hold you to the same standard that we hold our criminals to.
And I know that's right.
That's just how it is. And so we've been very lucky that overwhelmingly our police officers, they didn't choose this position because they just wanted to lock up bad people. They really, really want to make a difference. Yeah. And so we have to give them the support, the tools, but also the direction on how to do that. That's our job.
Yeah.
So.
And I do want to go back to something you said about where your journey even started. I think when we look at even where you were when you started in the service, there is a huge crossroads that could have happened there. When you talk about the road less traveled, I think you chose that. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear a little bit about what that crossroad looked like for you of deciding to, because I think when you started, you weren't even planning on being in for a long time.
No, I wasn't. So let me just tell a little bit about my background, and this is why I can relate so much to the youth. I got pregnant as a teen mom, and my daughter's dad was into drug dealing. You know, so at any moment, my poor decision making could have landed me in prison, could have landed me in juvenile correctional center. It could have changed the trajectory of my life. Yeah. Thank God I had a village. I still had a praying mom. I had family members and friends and society in our community who saw something different in me than what I saw, and they poured into me. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm out here and I'm talking to what people have labeled the wayward youth, I often see myself in those kids, because one step to the left or the right really would have changed who I was as a person and the career path that I chose. And so when we're talking about how do we restore community back into everywhere that we work, live, and play, it starts by giving those kids a voice. Yeah. Right? Don't come in telling them you're bad, you're this, you're that. Find out where the disconnect happened. I know where mine's happened. Right. And so thank God, I always give a God praise that he didn't take his hand off of me. Yeah. And so my goal is not to take our hands off our youth. Yeah. However, just like with any discipline, I'm going to love you, give you all of the things you need to succeed. Mm-hmm. But if you choose to continue to go down a road that makes it detrimental to other people, then I'm going to hold you accountable. Yeah. And so I'm very clear on that.
One of the things that I have really, a lot of conversations I've been having lately are, because I love you, I'm going to hold you accountable. Yes. And that, at the end of the day, even if to you it seemed tough and to you this is not what you want to be hearing right now, because I care so much, I'm going to challenge you to be a better person and hold you to that. And it's great to hear that there are leaders in our community that are seeing it that way. Because I will tell you, I did the Huckleberry House sleep out last year. Yes. And that was one of the, thank you, because we're doing it again this year. I'm doing it again this year, and I'm excited, but also it's one of those things. It really did. It was one of the instances in my adult life that really, really made me step into someone's shoes for a night. And I think when we even think about our homeless population, our unhoused population, I'm sorry. We think that certain conditions or laziness or not wanting to do certain conditions have led someone to be in this way of life. And what I learned that night was, especially when it comes to youth, they're looked down upon or seen a certain way, but a lot of the times end up in this situation out of discrimination, out of family members not wanting to support them, out of one that really touched my heart was LGBTQ youth.
A huge one.
A huge one. My coming out journey was HE double hockey sticks. I could not, that was a whole situation. I just couldn't imagine on top of that, having to deal with not having a warm meal to come home to, having a bed to come home to. When I woke up the next morning from Huckleberry House, there's bugs, there's milk, there's the wetness on you, all kinds of things, and you think about how these are then people that are also having to face the scrutiny of the world around them because of the visual there.
Absolutely.
And that's hard. Yeah. I think that is, when we talk about that fork in the road, the way that society treats you is also what will push you to go down a certain line.
Absolutely. We talked about this. God bless you for sleeping in the box.
Girl, that was one night. That was one night.
But I also talk about, because it gives you a vision of what they have to do, right? And then we always say things like, oh, just get up and try again another day. Well, if that's your reality, day in and day out, what is the other day going to lead to, right?
I'm saying, even getting up in the middle of the night, having to go use the bathroom. I was like, I have a facility available to me. I'm imagining someone that doesn't. And the next day, we were actually doing Hops on High. I had a market that I had to start. I think we started at 6:30 the next morning because we were marking the street.
Wow, so that sleep was different.
Girl, that sleep was different. And so even just little things that I hadn't thought about of, oh my gosh, my back hurts now. And you picture somebody that has to do this every single day, and you have to get up and go to work, and you have to face people, and that is really hard. And I think that when you have people in positions like yours that have the ability to show a little bit of kindness and show that reach, but do the same thing of, I'm going to love you so much, I'm also going to hold you accountable.
Absolutely. And then none of us are perfect, right? People every day are one bad decision away from something different.
Yes.
And it may not be a decision that was yours that got made for you.
Yes.
And so you always have to lead with humbleness, right? Because I never know what life will throw my way.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about mental illness. Mental illness is real here.
Yes.
We don't have enough resources. A lot of our children are growing up in homes that are not ideal, that are dysfunctional, that are toxic. And we can pour all of these programs into them, but if we don't heal the family as a nuclear family, then we're just healing this kid for 8 hours and then we're sending them back into the toxic environment.
Yeah.
And so when I came to Columbus, as I've done in Detroit, is how can we heal the family as a whole? Stop judging people and give them tools to succeed.
Yeah.
And so we've been very passionate about interacting with our grassroots organizations, because let me just say this, the work that they do doesn't get recognized enough.
Absolutely.
You know, I get to stand in front of a camera and talk about all the great things that we're doing, but you have these very small grassroots organizations that have been doing this work for 15, 20, 30 years that don't get the recognition that they deserve. And so now that we have a voice, they have a voice. And it means working together to make sure we do two things. One, keep this community safe, but also provide resources so that people don't feel like they have to choose bad in order to survive.
Yeah.
And that's really what, produces crime.
Absolutely.
Is the social determinants. What is your zip code showcase in your school district?
Yeah.
What are you seeing every day as you walk past homes that are abandoned? What does your housing look like when your mom is working 2 jobs just to be able to support you one meal a day? And so you have to depend on the school for your other meals. These are things that we're not talking enough about, that we need to talk about, because if we're going to change how society behaves, we have to give them the tools to be successful. And I think we've done across this country just a very poor job of doing that.
Yeah. And I think, too, the next thing that leads into is our workforce development.
Yes.
I think something we're all facing, no matter what industry, you guys, us, people in commercial real estate, people across the board are having such a hard time building that funnel for the next generation to come in and decide to choose our career paths. And a piece of that is that there is an entire population that's kind of being left out of these career opportunities because they don't have the connections, or they don't have the way to even make it to. I mean, your mom was in the service, so you at least even had somebody to look to be like, I could do that. And that is not real for a lot of people. What is it like right now trying to build that next generation in your world?
We had to really look. So what we've done is we've gotten younger and younger, right? So we, traditionally law enforcement be like, oh, go to the colleges.
Yeah. That is so late.
Right? And so we have to put our hands on elementary school kids.
Yeah.
Right? We have to show them in middle school. So we have several programs that the division runs. We have TAPS, which is Teen and Police Services, that are in several middle schools across the city. We also have our Public Safety Corps, which is our elementary kids. And then we have cadets, which are kids who can eventually age into the police department. But we're looking at even younger than that. We have to really touch these kids in pre-K and kindergarten, and then hold on to them. What I hate more is a great project that's only singular focused on 1 year. Yeah, you need a multi-year project, right? Because these kids have to feel like once you engage them and they trust you, they can't just step away. You're going to be there when they call. And so even when we're talking to our police officers about joining a lot of the things that don't volunteer for this moment. Know that this is a lifetime commitment to this kid. And so we've seen some success with that. I'll just tell you, I just had a meeting yesterday with the Somalian leadership, a segment of this population that has felt underrepresented and not been embraced by law enforcement because of their language barriers, some of their traditional values, and it's our job. So policing used to say it's the community job to get to know us. No, it's not. It's our job to get to know the community in which we serve. And so breaking down those barriers, making sure our police officers understand that there's different people in a community that share different nationalities and religions than you, and treat people how you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
If we continue to do that, we won't have any issues.
Right.
But that's how we're hoping to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
We did very well in recruiting, even when at a time when law enforcement is not seeing the numbers. We've been very fortunate that people really want to just join this agency. And I think it's because they're excited about the changes that they're seeing.
I think so too. I think that's one of the things that in an organization, if you are looking to bring in new talent, you have to show what you're doing that's different.
Yes.
A lot of our listeners are in commercial real estate or the insurance industry, basically just adjacent to that world. And one of the biggest things that we're facing is that we also have these very historical industries that have been gone a certain way. And even in my industry, I mean, this is very much, I was always told, especially, this is a good old boys club. Yep. This is, this construction, this is a certain way. And when I would come, honey, in my feathers, in my in my moments, because if you're listening, you probably know me, but it was a little bit of a shock for people, I think, of being like, oh, okay, and we're going to take you serious. Okay, that's good. So I think a lot of that comes from you being able to show that you're willing to embrace the changes and keep, that legacy in your back pocket and make sure that you adhere to the core values and morals that have gotten you to where you're at.
Absolutely.
And I always say, be your own historian, looking back and making sure that you are referencing the history, but moving forward with a different stride, which I think leads into a great segue for our next piece of conversation about joining the service and being, I think you just like me, where, you come dressed,
yes,
you come dressed down.
You're going to get the hair changes, you're going to get the makeup, but you're also going to be an authentic person who truly does care about the profession of law enforcement and who is embedded in her community. Not just when she's working, these 8 hours, right? But I'm in a community on off hours because I believe so much in the progress that we're trying to make. And this is not about me. This isn't even about Chief Bryant. This is about legacy. Yes. What would our legacy be in 10 years, 5 years when we're gone? What changes have we really made that are structural, so that the next person coming in, the next person who may feel like they're an outsider, feels welcomed? But this is also about making sure that our police officers are the best at what they can be. Yeah. And so sometimes that means you got to ruffle feathers, and you have to sometimes stand alone and be the only voice in the room that doesn't agree. But I didn't join this agency as a change agent to follow what was already done. Because if it was working, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly. And what do you feel like, because you do have to strike this very delicate balance of being too radical, but then also wanting to bring change in the organization. What kind of advice would you give to someone that is having to teeter that line right now of, I want to make change and there are certain things that I want to implement, but how do I do that without losing everybody that has helped build this thing to this point?
What we had to do? Some of our biggest critics are now some of our biggest allies. Sometimes you have to flip the person in the room who doesn't have any positive to say and bring them on board, put them on a team, listen to their ideas. They may not always win, but you have to listen even to the naysayers. I always say this: I don't want a town hall with just people who tell me they love me and Chief Bryant. Right. We can't make progress that way. Right. I need the person who's unhappy with our service, who may have a gripe that they had with the police officer. Because in order for us to truly change, we got to know who those people are as well, and they have to feel comfortable in a safe space where we can take criticism. Yeah. If you can take praise, you better be sure that you can take criticism. 100%. And this is what we signed up as leaders. We don't always get it right, and we don't proclaim to always know the best way. But I can say that we're open to ideas, suggestions, and there's never a wrong suggestion. Yeah. We may not be able to implement it right away. Right. But I think what I would tell any person who's trying to truly change a culture is you're going to need some of those people who don't feel the way you do. Yeah. And sometimes it's a good check and balance, right? Because I don't want a room full of people who are just going to tell me yes. Because I have definitely not grew up in an agency as a yes person. Yeah. And that's what I respect about true leadership is you don't know all the answers. And if you do, then you're in the wrong room. And so my advice to them is start slow, be methodical in your decision making, and listen. Listen, don't just change for the sake of changing, because it won't hold. And as soon as you're gone, it'll go back to the way it was. And if you truly want to have impact change, bring some people along for the journey. Let them make some of the decisions, and praise your people.
I think that part on this last episode that I just released today, actually, funnily enough, we talked about that a lot, of like, you praise publicly and then you have some of those harder conversations in private, because I think what you said there is really important. You have to have people that are not necessarily on your team,
Absolutely.
on that team.
Yes.
And let them know that they are not, you're expecting them to bring things to the table, but that it's not just going to go nowhere.
Yes.
Letting them know that you are taking action. I always, at the end of meetings, try to ask for like actionable items. What are the things that we need to leave here with that we can implement? What are immediate things, and then things further down the line? Because people do have to hear that you are willing to work with them and actually do the things, and not just want them to spew off there. Because at that point, they'll feel like it's a waste of their time.
Absolutely.
To come and sit here and do the back and forth with you. So
only to have nothing change, and then in 6 months they're saying the same thing over and again. I'm saying, we'll think about it. We'll think about it. I'm very upfront. There are some things that I'll say right off that can't happen, and these are the reasons why it can't happen. I think if you just tell people honestly that you're going to, if I say I'm going to work on something, then I'm truly going to work on it.
Yeah.
If I know that we can't work on it, then be honest and say that can't happen, but maybe next year, or or when we get more manpower, things like that. I think just honesty. I think we've gotten away from people being honest with people.
Yes.
And sometimes honesty doesn't feel good. Sometimes, sometimes some people will get mad, or feelings will get hurt. As long as it's coming from a good place, and then you circle back and you make sure that you review what you talked about with them, I think people understand that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I try to lead.
I think what you said too is that was such an important aspect in me becoming a leader and being someone that manages people, is honesty on both ends. Of I have to be honest with myself of if I can even do it.
Yes.
Or if it's within the scope of something I have my hands on in the first place, and honesty on your end of, let me make sure that this person understands that it's not that I wouldn't want to, or you know what, if I don't want to, I'm gonna tell you that too.
Exactly. Yes.
I gotta let you know.
Because sometimes no is just no, and that is a complete.
And that is and I think that's an important part of having people trust your word of what you are telling to them. Is how many times are you if you're saying yes to every single thing, no matter what your team is giving you. I'm sorry, but I don't know if that's.
I don't want to follow the person that says yes to everything.
Yeah, 100%. What do you feel like right now? Women in your in the force are really maybe facing, or some of the main things about, like in your guys' work, it's very much seen, I think, a certain way, and I think. Even when you talk about the way people show up professionally, you have to show up, especially as you're a woman. I think people expect you to tone it down a little bit. I think people expect you to come a certain way. I used to get told to lower my voice, spread, take up more room, wear navy, wear black, etc. The things that we get told. How do you think that you guys are challenging that?
Oh, I would say, just even looking at me, when I came into law enforcement 28 years ago, women felt like they had to really tone down their femininity. Yeah. Your hair had to be shorter. It had to be in a tight bun. You wouldn't dare wear, red lipstick or nail polish. These are the things that don't make a great police officer. Those are not the things that make you a great police officer. You know what makes a great police officer? Compassion, empathy, dedication, discipline, determination, professionalism, all those things that go into what makes a person, when a person's having the worst day of their life, when I show up, they're not asking about my hair color, right? As long as it's not, something, let me just say this for the record, don't come in and it's like crazy.
Right, but we know what.
But be who you are.
Yes.
And we accept that, and we've grown as an agency from really that very staunch buzz cut look. You have to be, I couldn't even get on a job 30 years ago, 40 years ago, because there was a height requirement.
Not the height requirement?
Yeah. And
I would have been kicked off.
Exactly.
I would have been, I'm 5'2".
And so the police department had to change. Law enforcement as a whole has to change. And the generation that we're hiring now, they care about things differently than how we were when I came on 28 years ago.
Yeah.
And in order for us to make the best of the situation, you have to encourage diversity. You have to encourage inclusion. You have to encourage all those equity things that people are shying away from. That's what makes a great police department. And so I would say that as long as you have those core values that we look for, I don't care if your nail color is pink. I don't care if you like red hair or brown hair or blonde hair. As long as when you show up and you give the best service that you can be. I think that's what we're looking for in our agency.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of what we are, when we talk about equity and especially like the diversity aspect of things, having people that feel represented in the people that are supposed to be representing them in these positions, I think that's really important. I think even when I look at people in my industry, when I look around the room, I would love to see and feel represented by those in leadership that, I could see myself doing what you're doing. Or in your case, a community member looking up and being like, she is looking fly with these eyelashes. I can be a police officer with my eyelashes. Things like that are just small things that make people feel a little bit more seen.
Absolutely.
And really lead into that human aspect of things. Yes, you are First Assistant Chief Potts, but also you are LaShonna.
Yes,
first.
Yeah.
And how important is that for people to know the human behind the uniform?
I think that people need to know that as law enforcement officers, we put our pants one leg at a time like everybody else.
Yeah.
I think people for so many years, because we had this fallacy that officers don't get hungry, they don't get scared, they don't get cold. All of those things are untrue. I've been hungry, scared, and cold in my 28 years. And I think because we're so vulnerable now in law enforcement, realizing that stoic machoism exterior did not serve the community well, which is why we kept having so many incidents of civil unrest and the community saying we're tired of being treated like we're beneath you.
Yeah.
And so when I got here, and even in Detroit, it was important that people saw me first. So even before us ever getting a job here, Chief Bryant and I came to Columbus in plain clothes, and we would just walk up to police officers not knowing who we were, and just ask them, if you had one thing you want to change about your agency, what would it be? We heard over and over again the white shirts. So when we got here, they were wearing white shirts. They were obligated to wear these leather hats in the summertime, burning up. And we changed that when we got here. We went to blue shirts and we went to baseball caps. We let them show their tattoos. We let them wear beards. And guess what? They're policing better now than they did when you had all of these rules and regulations.
Because they're policing as themselves.
There you have it.
They don't feel like they're putting on a whole separate uniform person to come into work.
Absolutely.
Because how hard is that to uphold? And I really feel like that speaks to no matter what uniform you have to wear, if it feels like a costume, you're not going to do your best work in it. Oh, that was a word.
That was a word. That was it.
I feel like it's small things like that I feel like people don't think about in what create major shift from the leadership aspect. Literally, you change the color of a shirt and the style of hats and where people could wear their shirts. And that made a difference. It
made a difference in the morale, made a difference in how the community saw our police officers.
Yeah.
Because I think for a long time, community thinks officers just hang themselves up in a closet and then bring themselves out.
Right.
And they go home to the same issues, concerns that community has. And so any way that we can make our officers more comfortable, which then makes them more comfortable in the community, which then lessens the height in between them and the community when they're engaging. Because I'm going to tell you, if I'm burning up in a leather hat and I'm dripping sweat and you want to have this conversation,
it's
you
not
may
going to be a
not be the
conversation.
best version of me.
Absolutely.
And
that's just the reality of recognizing like the human condition.
Yes.
If I'm not comfortable and you're not comfortable and we're functioning and physically we are not comfortable, how is that going to be better for anybody?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our citizen complaints have went down.
That's awesome.
Our community engagement, because we expect community engagement in every facet of the agency, not just in patrol, but if you're in organized crime or you're in a bureau, the detective bureau, you're going to do some community service. None of us are hiding away in our desks anymore.
Yeah.
You have to get out there and get to know the community you serve, and then you want to do better by them when you know who they are.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that in a short 4 years we've been here. We've seen how community engagement and putting community first, and I'm talking about interior and exterior, how that transcends to how officers behave and how the community behaves, because it takes both of them to want the same thing for it to work.
Absolutely.
And so we've been blessed that both sides have bought in to our vision, and we're just excited about what the next couple years will look like for us.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's little things like that. I don't even know if a lot of people have even noted that change, And it's interesting because one of the things that we talk about a lot in my company is installing that integrity of your work again. Feeling proud of the work that you are doing and how that can really change the quality of what you put out. Because if you feel like, okay, if what I do here and now changes someone's experience once I put this out, and I want to be proud of this work, you will do a better job automatically. Something we've played around with is before putting finishes on things, like if we're restoring a cabinet or something, maybe having the guys sign it, just as a momentum. Because you know how people, it's when you build a house, you put on your studs, sometimes people will put like Bible verses and sign them and things. And so we've talked about back and forth, is that something maybe we could do? Just what little things we can do to try to help our carpenters reinstall that dignity of, man, when I drive past that, I built that house. And in that house, on the second cabinet, on the third floor, honey, it's my signature. And it's little things that if you can find a way, no matter what organization you're in, to try to install these little pieces of dignity of your work, it's incredible the changes I think that can happen.
Absolutely. And it's so funny. So officers will say, I don't need recognition, I don't need accolades. Human nature needs accolades and recognition, and so it doesn't always have to be this grandiose idea where you're doing like this award ceremony, but oftentimes what I'll do is just call officers. I'll read a report that they did or something, and they're so shocked to know that the assistant chief is calling and say, that was a great job you did, because they don't hear that often, and they should hear it more.
And I'll tell you the truth. I also, I had a conversation with an officer not too long ago where I had told him that I was hoping to reach out to you to do the podcast and that we were going to connect and et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, you can do that? And I was like, I could try. And it's so funny sometimes how much sometimes people in our organizations feel like we are so just like at a distance or at a place that, I don't know if I would approach with, that kind of thing. But at the same time, though, once I did tell that person I was doing it, they were like, man, she's going to rock it. And this is so cool. I just didn't even know that like a chief could, I never seen a chief on a podcast. And I was like, I know that's right.
And you know what's so funny? And even my sergeant who works directly for me, when we invited them up to the 8th floor, and I have an open door policy, so that means any officer from anywhere can come and have a discussion with me. One of the things the officers were saying is, we never came on the 8th floor. The 8th floor was the only time you came here when you were being suspended or terminated. I don't want you to think the 8th floor is where you get suspended or terminated. Right. Now, does that happen here?
Sure.
Absolutely. But that shouldn't be the experience that every officer has in this division when they think about the 8th floor. Yeah. And so we do things like, I'm building a coffee bar. We have candy, And so when people come in, I don't want them to be tense and apprehensive about having a conversation with me while they're here. That doesn't feel good. Yeah. And then I don't get the best from them when you're scared to speak openly. And so
it's like going to the doctor's office.
It is, yes.
If you took your vitals, really and truly, you think about what that does to someone's state, and people tell me, I'll go to the doctor's office, automatically my blood pressure's through the roof, so they think I'm unhealthy, and it's just because I'm here, and I'm like, that's not helpful.
Yes. Thank goodness for the doctors so my fear is the dentist.
Yeah.
Or I'll say it was, but I got a fantastic dentist now. You come in, they offer you a beverage, you got the soft music and the, like the scenic ocean view playing in the background. And I love going to the dentist now. Yeah. Where it was apprehension because I just didn't know somebody playing in your mouth doesn't sound fun.
Right.
And so it's the same thing. When you come to see me, even if it's a dish out discipline, I'm always doing it in love, because I don't want that experience to be the rest of your career.
Right.
Something happened. We got to get past this experience. You have to take whatever that discipline is.
Yeah.
But this doesn't determine the next 20 years of you as a police officer. Only you can determine that.
Right.
Grow from this lesson, and then I'll see you out here.
Yeah.
And so that's the message that we as leadership have to keep every day telling our police officers, because it is a dangerous job.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a thankless job. And so at the very least, we should be saying thank you to them.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's interesting how much, just in hearing some of the things that you guys face and are addressing, and some of the things that I hear just from people in all different aspects of their work right now. I think about these property managers that we work with, and literally the only time that they get a call is when something's on fire or flooding or something is wrong. When I go to a lot of property management companies' reviews on Google, it's only the bad experiences. It's only the people that are coming to, oh, they didn't do a good job by me. I'm gonna use my Twitter fingers. But I think that is especially where, if you know the rest of the world is looking at your people for an opportunity to pick them apart, that's where you internally have to look for opportunities to do the opposite.
Absolutely. And encourage. We always tell officers, speak to community, right? But also tell community, when you see a police officer, say hello.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, trust me. When you go up to them and you just introduce yourself and, hey, I just wanted to say good morning or good afternoon, it lessens their apprehension, because they don't know how community is going to receive them.
Absolutely.
But it is our job. It is our job to make sure that they know that we care and that they're supported. And so any way we can do that, and it means shaking a hand when you see a police officer out there. We have to do a better job of making sure community knows the work that we do.
Yeah.
If you've been following our Facebook page, we've been really intentional about showing compliments of police officers who are out here doing amazing work and highlighting them. Because they are doing it every single day.
Yeah. And they are. And as are you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining our podcast today. I just appreciate so much your perspective and being willing to have this conversation, because I'll tell you the truth. It's so funny how inaccessible we think people are sometimes, in the way that we perceive people just because of their positions or just because of where they are in life. So thank you for giving us that accessibility. And just, I hope that anybody that's listening to this has taken something great from this podcast. If this is your first time joining us on the podcast, welcome, and I hope you come back. And if you are coming back from another episode, stay with us. We got some good stuff going on. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, do all the things. And thank you so much, Chief Potts.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. Thank you. That's a wrap. Thank you so much. Oh, this was great.